Website speed is one of the most important ranking factors for Google, and we're going to show you how to solve those problems here on this edition of the Pest Geek Podcast.
Pull out your hose and grab your can. We're about to integrate another Pest Geek Podcast. Hi, everybody. Frank Hernandez here, and welcome to the Pest Geek Podcast, bringing you the latest information on pests, products, and politics from today's leading industry sources to help you start, manage, and grow your pest control business.
Hey, welcome back to another edition of the Pest Geek Podcast. I am your host, Frank Hernandez, here every week discussing all things pests. And we're going to be discussing speed as one of the most important ranking factors for your website, for Google to rank you. And one of the biggest problems that I see is that I see websites that have been developed by supposedly a, so-called, quote, web designer or web developer, and yet that website is loading at 6, 7, 15 seconds. The website crawls on mobile, and you're paying somebody $500, $600, $700 a month on top of the $500 to $1,500 that you paid to get this developed. And 6 months later, you're not being ranked, and they're saying, well, it just takes time. It just takes more time. And meanwhile, the coding on your site, your internals on your site is a disaster. I'm going to give you an example of things that you're going to need to look at. And what I'm doing is I'm giving you the technical information so you can look at it, you can understand it, but you're going to need to do some Google research on the terms to understand what this is. The idea is not that you become a coder. The idea is that you understand and you're able to monitor. If you're doing a pest control service and there was a German roach infestation and you charged for an initial service and then you did a follow-up in a week and then you did another follow-up in a week and you did another follow-up in a week, and the customer is still saying, look at all these roaches. They're crawling around like the first day. Nothing has changed. What are you going to tell the client? It just takes more time? The client is going to fire you and say, I'm going to get somebody else. You don't know what the heck you're doing. This is the same thing that has happened in this industry where a bunch of amateurs have decided they're going to learn how to design on WordPress, and they have no clue what it takes to really get you to rank. Or they're just a bunch of marketing guys and they do the same thing that a lot of people do in this industry. They go out, they spray, they don't identify. They don't know what they're dealing with. They send a $10 an hour tech who's a spray tech who doesn't know how to identify, doesn't understand insect biology, doesn't understand insecticide mode of action, doesn't know anything. He's a spray tech. You hired him to go out and spray. That was it. So let's look at a lot of these ranking factors. And one of the most important ranking factors, like I said, is page speeds. But you need to make sure all your images are, first of all, optimized before they're put onto the website. Those images have to be put on for web. You can't put a huge image up there, not optimize it, and then put it up on the web. Your images need to. Then, second of all, you need to install an optimizer that will actually finish optimizing them on your website. And you need to pay for a good one. Inline CSS needs to be minified. HTML needs to be minified. JScripts need to be minified. The problem is that this takes work. This is anywhere between 2 and 8 hours worth of work figuring out what breaks, because if they use the template, not all templates are going to behave the same way. If you have a slider on your website, that's going to be much more difficult to minify and deal with all these coding issues than if you have a simple HTML5 site. You need a content delivery network. You need to pay for it. What is a content delivery network? Let me explain to you in a very simple term. Let's say you've got a manufacturing facility in California, but your client is on the East Coast, or most of your clients on the East Coast. It's 7 days to get it shipped. Okay, what you need is a distributor. You need a distributor that can get it to them in that day. And in this case, we're talking about people like Target, Univar, that you can get the product immediately. Here's the problem when you have a server. You have no clue where that server is. That server could be in Australia. That server could be in the Philippines. And that data has to travel 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,000 miles to get to you when you request it. You see, but my website, I'm a local company and my customers are local. Yeah, but that server where that data isn't local. You need a content delivery network. What you do is you buy a service that puts that data on 60, 70, 100 servers around the world. So when your client is in California and he's looking for the data in California, he can get the closest server to him delivered to him. You don't got a CDN. Your website is still going to be slow because, like I said, you don't know where that server is. Unless you hired a local company that has a local server that is lightning fast, that is dedicated, that is managed, which it leads me to another conversation. You're not going to get super lightning speed with a $3 or $5 a month server or a $10 a month server. It's not going to happen. Where's your cache? If you're not having that information cached, it's not going to load quickly. You need to keep alive, compress and transfer information. Your site needs to be able to do all these things. It can't just be a pretty picture. It's kind of like the pretty girl who has no personality, has no brain. She just sits there and looks pretty. That's what a lot of people are just looking. I need a pretty site. I need good, I need something that, wow, that looks really beautiful. It's slower than molasses. It's not optimized. There's no SEO on it. It's not going to go anywhere. You need to cache the static content. All right, so what do you do? How do you keep an eye on this? How do you do this? Well, you need to be able to have the tools that are going to allow you to either monitor this or be able to identify it. I'm going to give you 4 tools that are essential for this, and they're all free, by the way. Great products. Number 1 is Google Developer. In Google Developers, Google Speed Test, page speed testing is critical. The good thing about the Google Page Test is that it runs it on both mobile, for mobile device, and for desktop. 65% or more of the searches that are being done are done on mobile. Yet, most sites are optimized for desktop. You sit there and you look at it on a desktop, and you run it on a desktop, and you're so impressed by it, and you don't even take a look at what's going on a mobile device. So if you're not getting at least a 90 plus score on Google, you got to work on that site. On mobile, it needs to load up in the 80s right now, 90s, in order to get it there. Just having a website by itself that is mobile ready, that will, collapse and transform easily in mobile is not enough. Another one is GT Metrics. GT Metrics is going to give you a Y-slow score and a basic speed score. They both need to be in the 90s, optimized. If you're not in the 90s, you got a problem with your site. It also has a great waterfall effect that you can look down and see where the problem is. Where is it being slow? And then fix that slow problem. Pingdom Tools is great. You want that also in the 90s. You're not going to get 100%. It's very difficult to get 100% on site, especially on a WordPress site, especially that kind of site where you have child themes, and then you also have sliders, and you have a whole bunch of stuff preloading. Very difficult. The last one is probably the one you should be doing first, which is webpagetest.org. Got links to all of this, guys. You can just link to it for free. If you go on the post and you look at it up on our website, you can get it. Webpagetest.org is going to give you an ABC score on a lot of the top things that I discuss. On a CDN, it's going to give it to you on caching static content. on preload cache, on keep alive. Also, it's going to look at your first byte, which is very important. You need to load under 0.5, like less than half a second. And then it's going to give you your overall page score. And it also has a waterfall. You're going to look at things like your first byte, your load time. How many requests is that server making before that server says, yeah, I'll load up the information? Because the problem is that all on 1&1 and on GoDaddy and on all these websites, those are shared servers. You're sharing the data and you're sharing the backbone and you're sharing a lot of things. It's not dedicated. If you need the speed because you're going to compete in a serious market, like if you're in the top 10 market, like New York, if you're in a very, very aggressive market where you've got 100 people competing online and your speed is not top, you're not going to rank. I don't care how pretty that site is. I don't care how much they're charging you for local SEO. You're not going to rank. So load time, server requests, images loaded. How many images are you loading on that front page? It should be light. Is your CSS loaded? Are your fonts being loaded? Remember that you're also pulling fonts from Google on a lot of these sites, and it has to have them. If you've got, like we do, an SSL certificate where we got a secure site, it has to redirect it from an HTTP site to an HTTPS site. That takes time. You need a super fast server that can load it. If you've got plugins that have to be front loaded, you need to check that and you need to decide if you really need that plugin or not. If it's slowing your website down and that plug isn't essential and you can get a coder to do it and remove the plugin, even better. Now, I'm going to give you 3 plugins that are going to help you solve this problem. And here's what you got to understand about these plugins. They're not automatic. You're going to have to do a lot of work, anywhere between 1 to 8 hours of work when you plug this, and you're going to break your site. You're going to have to be monitoring it as you're making these tests and these changes on a desktop, on a mobile device, and on a tablet, and make sure it's all working. It takes work. The plugin makes it easy for you so you don't have to code. The plugin doesn't do the work for you. So WP Rocket is a paid server. They do not offer it for free. It is probably the best one out there. $39 for the plugin, and you're up and running. Get it installed. Start working on it. It's the easiest one to do, but it's paid. Auto optimize, which is actually there's no O in the optimize, is good. Depending on the template you're running, it will break a lot of sites. You're going to have to do some work. It's really easy, but some things are going to work, some things aren't. Above the fold is also another one. There is also WP Super Cache, which is great, but you need a freaking PhD to learn how to run it. It's going to take you hours to get it to run. You're going to have to go through a couple of tutorials and learn how to use it. And then EWWW, Image Optimizer, to optimize your images. There's a free version. You're going to need the paid version if you really want. Look, if you really want to be serious of being online, you're going to have to spend the money on a lot of tools. It's no different than being any professional. A lot of these agency pays for these tools, which is the same thing that we say to our client, why do you charge so much? I says, we got to have 37 things in that truck to make this happen. 15 years of experience, licenses, insurance, the state breathing down our throat. These are things you don't have when you order a product online and you get a free product. You get it, from domyownpestcontrol.com, and you don't have to pay for any of it. You have no knowledge of what you're doing. You're just applying a product. You have no knowledge of how to apply. It's the same thing with a person that tries to build their own site. They don't understand all these things, but they think they're going to save a ton of money by doing that. And they say, well, because everybody's a ripoff. Guess what? You have the same attitude that most clients have about us as professionals, that most pest control companies are nothing but ripoffs. It's the same attitude. You have to overcome it, and you have to overcome it yourself. So I hope that this is helpful to you. And this is all I got for you guys today. You have a great one.
Thank you for listening to the Pest Geek Podcast. If you have enjoyed the Pest Geek Podcast, please give us a rating, write a review, or subscribe to the channel. You can join the Pest Geek Society by visiting pestgeekpodcast.com. Thank you for listening. See you next time.